Okay, now let's switch gears and look at the other side. Mozart Quintet in C major. Let's just get the sound of it going in our heads here, and then we'll dive in. Okay. Want to try connect with me? 1, 3, 4, extra bar, new start. But now that's really a 1. And here's our 5th bar restored, and an extra. Okay, now we start over again. Try you're not conducting, try it. If you move to it, you'll feel it in a way you wouldn't otherwise. Okay, ready? Here we go. Conduct like this. We gotta conduct bars. If we're doing hyper measures, we have to conduct bar lines, not beats. Okay, ready? Try again. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and another 1. 2. And this time we can actually reinterpret. Another one. Okay, there we go. And now we'll back to the 5 bars. Okay, so what's unique about this?
Metrical reinterpretation.
Good, that's one thing that's going on. Very good.
Elongated upbeats. Is that right?
I don't hear that as weighting. Elongated upbeats would mean that the beginning of the phrase happens and then you get the downbeat and you can start year 1. But here the phrase starts bum, 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 bum. That's the second one. But you know you're starting with a hypermetrical downbeat. The 1 happens right when the phrase starts. If it were an elongated upbeat, you'd go, where's the beginning? Okay, now we're in sync, you see. So the phrase would start and you're waiting for a downbeat. Here they go together.
But what is the extra hyper measure 6?
Oh, well, okay. Now that is elongation too, but it's not an upbeat.
Okay.
It's stretching out the end of something. It's we call those grand pauses, right? Where you wait. Grand pause comes in between things.
Grand pause. Okay. So grand pause.
Grand pause. Well, he needs a little extra time, you know? Yeah. He's got to get his cane out and start rotating. Oh, yeah, grand pause. That's right. Okay, so where's this reinterpretation happening and how does he show it in his symbols?
Measure 15.
15. And he's not doing the slash thing, which he sometimes does. 4 becomes 1, but he's saying that 5, the 5th bar, equals 1. It becomes 1. That's another way to show the same thing. So that's metrical reinterpretation. Why would you expect a 5 there?
Because it's in 5. The whole hypermeasure thing is not duple or...
Yeah, you've had it a couple times. Now, that's one thing you could point to as an anomaly, a strange thing here. Remember the non-duple hypermeter? That's not as common as the duple. And then 3 is a little oddball, but 5 is way out there. Yeah. That's really strange. You're not going to find a whole lot of that, although this and Tchaikovsky. I don't know. There are a few that you can think of. Yeah, Brahms has some too. Usually, though, it's more obvious expansion that creates the 5. This is just straight up 5. You know. Yeah.
I just didn't notice that. We need to observe the the numbers, the hypermeasure, the number underneath the score to find out that, right?
Right, that's how he shows his hypermetrical interpretation.
That's why I don't know what to do because I didn't notice that, I think. But
Oh,
if
really?
without these numbers, how can we find out the?
How can we do what?
How can we find out the reinterpretation without those numbers? Is there any way we can do
Yeah,
that?
when you hear something starting,
That might be an overlap.
you know, we tend to align our beats with beginnings of things. So we're thinking about, we're tracking with, we're aligning our sort of body rhythms, our motions. We're syncing up with the music, and what we're syncing up with are beginnings of notes, beginnings of chords, and the beginnings of phrases too. Although we know that those two, the meter and the phrase structure, they can be out of alignment. So we fully acknowledge that. But here, that one, the reinterpretation of that 5 as a 1 makes sense because that becomes the start of something. It's not just that sign gesture that happens there, but it's, let's see, what is that anyway? Da, 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 da. So you kind of have to start, da, da, da. You have to start there, and because that's a starting point, we put a 1 to reflect it.
But if we hear it, we might be saying that's an overlap.
Yeah, overlap is in another kind of category, but so if this is asking us, if we're thinking about hypermeter, we put this, but it's overlap too then,
Okay.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yes.
So we expected that thing to just end, and instead it goes on and starts afresh there. So yeah, that's overlap as well.
Okay.
Okay, now, and by the way, that 3 scale degree 3, the E up there, is dissonant. It needs to go down. But all the others have gone da da, and you're done. But this goes da 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 dee da 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 da, and it goes somewhere. So you hear the newness of that moment, even as you follow the gesture as it has come before, as a sign sort of thing. Neat moment. So good. Yeah, there's overlap there too. Now there's another possible answer here. If we're looking for anomalies, 5-bar hypermeasure, that's an anomaly. But there's another possibility. Do you see the 6 though, in parentheses? The grand pause thing that you were mentioning? That's an anomaly too, because you're on hold there. Remember what we call that? Suspended hypermeter. We talked about that last time, so let's get that up here too.
Where is this?
See the 6 in parentheses?
Sorry.
It's a measure of rest, sometimes called a grand pause. Suspended hypermeter. Okay, and one example was elongated upbeats. That fits into this. An elongated upbeat is an example of this. That's where the stretching, the extra stuff is added at the beginning of a phrase, and that delays a downbeat. So you've got a phrase that begins and goes on, but you're waiting until you get a hypermeasure before the hypermeasure begins. All that is the elongated upbeat. Okay, now, it could just be one measure. Now we've got this sort of grand pause effect, where you got total silence for a whole measure. And that comes in between, it comes in the cracks, in between two things. So it's really delaying the start of something else. It's adding space between stuff. So these fill space or get rid of space between things. They eliminate dead air, you know, keep things interesting so that where it could get boring, it isn't. The grand pause actually is kind of like suspense building by not putting something where you expected it, it makes you wait for something to start, and that sort of, in a way, that just makes it even more exciting, because you're going, okay, now wait, what are you gonna do next? And you're waiting for the next thing.
Is our prefix and elongated upbeat the same thing?
No, because a prefix wouldn't be the phrase itself beginning.
Okay.
And that really is going to be our new stuff for today, so we need a big line over
okay.
here to talk about expansion. And we could have suspended hypermeter within a prefix, but that's not quite the same effect. So we could have a prefix to a phrase, so something added at the beginning, and maybe we do go on hold there, but that's got a different feel to it than this. Subtle, but it is different.